I was balancing a tray of sparkling water and lemon wedges when my phone buzzed insistently on the countertop. My silk blouse caught the morning light, soft and smooth against my skin, and for a fleeting moment, I felt like the picture of composure, calm, collected, professional. But the message on my screen shattered that illusion. Don't embarrass us at the wedding. Please. Just stay quiet. I froze. My heart skipped a beat, and a twinge of anger mixed with disbelief coursed through me. My own family, in front of hundreds, worried more about appearances than the safety of their guests. The thought made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. Outside the window, the early sunlight glimmered across the pool at the venue, but all I could see was the looming chaos hidden behind the elegant floral arrangements and pristine tables. My mind raced. Last week, I had noticed something off about the seafood order, a hint of contamination that could spell disaster if no one intervened. I ran a hand over the counter, feeling the cool marble under my fingers, and tried to steady my breath. I could feel the familiar pull of responsibility, the weight of instinct pressing against the polite voice inside me that whispered, "Just stay quiet. Don't make waves." But I couldn't. Not this time. Not when 200 people's lives might be at stake. Pride, fear, family expectations, they all collided inside me, and somehow, in that perfect storm of tension, I knew exactly what I had to do. Years ago, I had been so different, naive, eager to please, desperate to belong. I remember standing in our family kitchen, my fingers trembling as I tried to explain a concern I had about an event my parents were hosting. "I think the shrimp might not have been stored properly," I said softly, glancing up at my mother's stern face. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and my father's eyes narrowed. "Darcy," my mom said, using my first name like a warning, "don't embarrass us. Just leave it alone. We know what we're doing." A lump formed in my throat, and I swallowed hard, tasting bile and disbelief. I wanted to scream, to insist that someone could get sick, maybe even seriously ill, but their words cut through me like ice. My hands shook as I stepped back, clutching the note I had scribbled with observations. The note felt like a fragile lifeline slipping through my fingers. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, staring at the gift my grandmother had pressed into my hands years earlier, a small, delicate compass with the inscription, "Trust your direction, even when others doubt you." I had never truly understood it until that moment. She had always believed in me, in my instincts, in my ability to see what others overlooked. I remember the hours I spent replaying their dismissal, feeling the sting of rejection, but also a spark of defiance. My parents' insistence that I stay quiet had ignited something within me. I realized that if I always waited for permission, I would always be powerless. That night, I made a silent vow. I would act on what I knew was right, even if it meant standing alone. The memory of their judgment still stung, but it no longer chained me. The compass sat on my dresser, its needle steady. It was more than a gift. It was a reminder that my courage didn't have to depend on their approval. I clenched it in my hand and promised myself that one day, I would prove that listening to my instincts could save more than just pride. It could save lives. After that night with the compass in my hand, I started quietly building my own path. I moved into a small apartment in the city, far enough from my family to feel the relief of distance, but close enough to remind myself that I could still succeed without their validation. My first weeks were messy, long hours, uncertain income, and more mistakes than I care to admit. But every time I felt like giving up, I remembered the way their voices had tried to silence me. I found a mentor in Claire Donovan, a seasoned food safety consultant with a sharp eye and an even sharper wit. She didn't just teach me procedures. She taught me to trust my instincts, to question assumptions, and to recognize danger before anyone else could. "Darcy," she said one night as we pored over shipment reports, "people will always underestimate you if you let them. Don't. Spot the risks, act decisively, and don't apologize for it." Her words became my mantra. I learned to inspect kitchens, check supplier documentation, and identify the tiniest details that could signal disaster. I spent nights poring over temperature logs and chemical reports, double-checking seafood deliveries, and building relationships with vendors who respected precision. Self-doubt crept in often, whispering that maybe I wasn't ready. But the successes started small and tangible, catching a mislabeled batch of oysters, preventing a small-scale contamination in a corporate event, earning the gratitude of event organizers who didn't know my full story. With each success, I kept my family in the dark. Social media updates were modest, carefully curated snapshots of life that suggested normalcy, never revealing the intense responsibility I carried behind the scenes. They assumed I was quietly helping or still figuring things out, blissfully unaware that I was saving hundreds of lives through my vigilance. By the time I was contacted to consult on a high-profile wedding, 200 guests, lavish seafood buffet, a family still wary of embarrassment, I had earned a reputation in my field. My skills were honed, my instincts sharpened, and my confidence was undeniable. I knew I could make the difference that night. And yet, the old fear lingered. What if my family still dismissed me? What if speaking up now labeled me as the troublemaker again? I looked down at the compass on my keychain as I drove to the venue. The needle didn't quiver. Neither did I. This was the moment where my training, courage, and intuition would finally intersect. I was ready to act, and I was no longer afraid of standing alone. The ballroom was a cascade of white roses and crystal chandeliers, a scene designed to impress, but my eyes were trained elsewhere. On the silver trays of seafood lined across the buffet, glistening under the warm lights. My family had arrived moments earlier, the usual tight-lipped smiles plastered on their faces, glancing at me with barely concealed skepticism. They expected quiet compliance, maybe a stumble or two, but certainly nothing that would make them look bad. I stepped forward, clipboard in hand, heart steady, but nerves buzzing. The room smelled of butter and lemon, the chatter of guests mingling with a faint hiss of the kitchen vents. I could see my mother's eyes flicker to mine, a silent question, a silent warning. "Don't embarrass us," she mouthed, and I felt the ghost of my younger self shrink in that gaze. But the years had changed me. The girl who once trembled in that kitchen was gone. "Everyone, please pause for a moment," I said calmly, projecting over the soft hum of conversation. My voice carried authority, precise and confident. Heads turned, including my family's. They took in the organized chaos I had mastered, inspection tags on trays, temperature logs clipped neatly beside each dish, my checklist of supplier confirmations. Every detail screamed confidence. I watched their reactions closely. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's hand went to her mouth. Cousins and aunts exchanged nervous glances. The room had gone quiet, curious, unsettled. I cleared my throat. Earlier today, I discovered a serious problem with the seafood deliveries. If served, it could have caused illness, possibly serious, for hundreds of guests. I let the words hang, letting the magnitude sink in. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My family's faces paled. "I've handled it," I continued, raising my clipboard like a shield of proof. "The contaminated batches have been removed, suppliers have been contacted, and precautions are in place to ensure every guest is safe." This wasn't something anyone else caught, only because I checked every detail myself. Silence. Then disbelief. My mother's hand trembled. My father's eyes widened. "Darcy, how?" my aunt stammered. I let them take it in fully. The elegant office of my life, the authority I held in this moment, and the quiet competence I had cultivated over years, all laid bare before them. This wasn't just about stopping a disaster. It was about showing them who I had become. I didn't say anything before because I didn't want conflict. I said softly, my gaze meeting my mother's. But I couldn't stay silent when people's health was at risk. "You taught me to avoid embarrassment, to stay quiet. But I've learned that courage sometimes means standing up, even when it's uncomfortable for the people you love." Their expressions shifted from skepticism to shame, then awe. The pride they had withheld, the doubt they had cast on me, dissolved as they realized the truth. I had saved 200 lives tonight. And in doing so, I had revealed the woman I had become, resilient, capable, unshakable. After the initial shock, The room felt heavy with tension. My family hovered awkwardly, unsure how to respond, while guests murmured in appreciation, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding behind the scenes. For the first time, I held the upper hand, not just because I had saved lives, but because I had finally stepped into my own authority. I took a deep breath and addressed them, my voice calm but firm. "I'm willing to help, but things need to change," I said, letting my eyes meet my mother's, then my father's, and finally the cousins who had scoffed at my warnings in the past. No more dismissing concerns. No more hiding behind appearances. And no more assuming I'll always stay quiet when something is wrong. My mother's lips quivered. My father's hands fidgeted. But I didn't falter. "If you want me involved in future events, you need to listen, not just hear me. Trust me to act when something is at stake. It's not about defying you, it's about ensuring the safety and well-being of everyone involved." I laid out specific conditions for each of them. My younger cousin, who had been careless with food storage, needed to attend proper training before handling any catering again. My mother, who often prioritized appearances over safety, needed to consult me on decisions affecting guests. My father had to acknowledge my expertise publicly, instead of privately shrugging off my warnings. Each condition was tied not to punishment, but to growth, responsibility, and respect. "I care about you," I added, softening my tone slightly, "but I won't sacrifice lives or my own integrity just to keep family pride intact. Change isn't just for me. It's for all of you. You have to be willing to step up." The shift in power was palpable. For years, they had assumed I would stay in the background, a quiet observer of their decisions. Tonight, I had rewritten the rules. Compassion guided my words, but firmness anchored them. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was creating space for accountability, for respect, for a chance to do better. And for the first time, I felt truly free. Not free from responsibility, but free from fear, free from the old patterns that had kept me small. They could reject my conditions, but that would be their choice. I had already chosen my path, and nothing could make me return to silence when action was required. By the end of the evening, the atmosphere had softened. My family, humbled and thoughtful, began to approach me with small gestures of acknowledgement, apologies whispered, questions about protocols, and even gratitude. My mother lingered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I didn't realize," she said quietly. "I see now what you've been doing all these years." I smiled gently, placing a hand on the compass I had carried in my pocket all day. Its small needle pointed steadily north, a quiet reminder of the direction I had always trusted, even when no one else did. That compass, once a symbol of hope and courage in my vulnerable youth, had witnessed my journey from self-doubt to decisiveness, from silence to action. Watching my family engage with responsibility for the first time felt like a slow but steady tide. Cousins who had mocked my vigilance were asking questions, genuinely curious. My father, once dismissive, now listened attentively as I explained key safety procedures. The power dynamics had shifted, not through confrontation alone, but through clarity, competence, and courage. I stood for a moment, taking in the room. Guests laughing, enjoying the safe and beautiful celebration, oblivious to the disaster that had almost occurred. I felt a wave of satisfaction, but more than that, a profound sense of peace. The journey had been painful, the rejection had stung, but I had grown into the woman I needed to be, confident, competent, and unafraid to stand alone when necessary. Finally, I whispered to myself, letting the words carry over the gentle hum of conversation. I will never stay quiet when it matters. I will act, I will lead, and I will honor my own voice. In that single moment, I realized that saving others, whether from danger or from doubt, wasn't just about heroism. It was about claiming my strength, embracing my instincts, and showing that courage, integrity, and care could coexist in one woman. And as I watched the family I once feared disappointing begin to change, I knew I had not only saved lives tonight, but had also saved